Well, good morning. How's everybody doing? A whoop and a golf clap. All right. Hopefully we're better at the end of the service. Well, good morning. My name's Cameron. If we haven't met, I'm one of the pastors around here. It's good to see you. Just a note, I'm not sick, but I was sick. And one thing my body likes to do every time I get sick is my vocal cords just go away. So I've not started chain smoking. My vocal cords just fold up and go home. And so it's really only a problem if you speak for a living. So we're going to make it through. And if my voice gives out halfway through, hopefully you know sign language, we'll just close it out and finish together. But I did not speak all weekend trying to get my voice back for today. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, did not say a single word. My wife kept telling me how happy she was. It had to have been a coincidence. But I'm super excited. We are in the second week of our summer series in the book of Psalms, the book of Psalm, full of Psalms. And the book of Psalm is really a book of songs. And what's unique about the book of Psalms is that it's the only book that in its entirety is not written from God to man, but man to God. There's a few different authors. One of the most prolific is King David. And if you feel like you're kind of all over the place, like your life is all over the place, and you got high highs and low lows, like the book of Psalms is your book, because you step into the book of Psalms and David's like, I praise your name. You're incredible. I'm fearfully and wonderfully. I love God. And then the next one, he's like, God, where are you? Why have you abandoned me? And why does my life stink right now? So this is the book of Psalms. But there's some incredible things that we can take away and unpack from this book. And I wanted to kind of lay a foundation before we jump into the text, because we as human beings are really good at worshiping things we don't mean to worship. Like, you may not even know it, but you're worshiping something in your life that you're not aware that you're worshiping. I'll give you an example. So there's two predominant ways that we do this, through fear and desire. So fear can actually cause you and lead you to worship something that you didn't want to worship. For instance, I fear PG&E. And so what this leads me to, applause breaks out. What this leads me to do is I have slowly but surely become my parents. All day, I'm just like, why is that door open? Who left that light on? Because I have a deep-seated fear that the mail's gonna come from PG&E and upend my entire life. And so what that's done is it has caused me to give my focus, my attention, my priority to this thing that should not have that much influence in my life. Fear can lead you to worship something you don't want to worship, but also desire can lead you to that place too. So for instance, my son FaceTimed me the other day. He was staying with my in-laws. This was a new experience for me. Our 6-year-old FaceTimed me, and he was shirtless, as all 6-year-olds are. Like, where are your clothes? We definitely sent you there with clothes on. And he FaceTimes me and he says, Dad, can I have more screen time? Now, he was calling me on a screen, asking if he could have more screen time. I'm like, I think you've answered the question. But we've really cracked down on screen time before you parent shame me, because when you let young children just loose on screens, they turn into something that's not human being. They just turn into something crazy. And so we've really cracked down on that. And so he called me, he's like, Dad, can I have more screen time? I said, all right, look, here's the deal, Bubba. I want you to play with your toys. I want you to build some stuff, like do some things, couple hours. And then after dinner, you can have 30 minutes of screen time. And then this is what he told me. He looked me in the eyes over FaceTime. He said, you are the best dad ever. I said, don't do that. Don't do that. Do I want you to tell me that? Yes, every day. Do I want you to tell me that because I gave you something that you wanted? No. Right? But this is exactly how we operate with life. Something gives us something that makes us feel purpose or fulfilled, or something that feels good or that we like. And we're like, I'm going to go towards that thing, right? My career gives me significance. So I'm going to start putting all of my time, all of my energy, all of my focus into my career. Or my health gives me a sense of purpose and freedom. And so I'm going to go all the way there. And the things that you desire and that give you positive feedback in your life, you don't even know it. But it's laying the groundwork for worship in your life. Starting to give it all of your time, all of your attention, all of your focus. And here's how you know you've been worshiping something that you didn't know you were worshiping, because when it gets taken away, your life begins to fall apart. Because I have been worshiping at the altar of my career. I've been worshiping at the altar of my health. I've been worshiping at the altar of my family. I've been worshiping at the altar of my success. And anytime that starts to get infringed upon, it starts to feel like my entire life is out of whack. And so we have to know this, that there's these two major things that push you to worship things that you shouldn't be worshiping. But there's good news, because Psalm 2 is a corrective psalm. Psalm 2 is a reminder of who is ultimately on the throne, not just in your life, but in the world. So Psalm 2 is where we're going to be. This is probably a mistake because I can already feel my voice starting to slip. I'm going to read the whole thing, and then we're going to jump into it. All right, if you have your Bible, the book of Psalms, like right in the middle of the Bible. 2 should be easy to find because it's the second one. If you don't have your Bible, it's going to be up on the screens. Here we go. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, you are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise. Be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. I'm not normally dyslexic, but sometimes when I'm reading something in front of 1,000 people, it pops up. But we made it through. We made it through. A couple things about this psalm. So this is one of the most quoted psalms in all of the New Testament. It's also what's known as a royal psalm and a messianic psalm. This was a psalm that would have been sung at the coronation of King David and then every other king in his line. So as they're coronating the new king, they would be singing this psalm. But it's not just about King David and his line of kings. It's also a messianic psalm. So it's also foreshadowing a greater David, a greater king. And if you wonder, like, why did so many of the Jewish people miss Jesus? It's because they were so focused on this being a literal psalm about a literal king that they missed the greater king, the greater David. So not only is this talking about David and his line of kings, but it's also talking about Jesus, the greater David, the greater king. And so there's 3 very important things that we learn about God from Psalm 2. And the reason you can't open up this book and go, all right, what does this tell me about me, right? Like, we're not reading a fortune here. You're not opening the Bible and going, God, tell me something good about myself. Most of the time, because we're all messed up people, it's not going to tell you what you want to hear. But Psalm 2 is such a beautiful psalm about the character and nature of God. And let me tell you why that's so important. Because as you get older, you start to realize the more you understand about your parents, the more you understand about you, right? You start reacting a certain way or doing a certain thing, or you start yelling at people to close doors. You're like, oh my gosh, I am my father. I am my mother. Lived my whole life trying to escape that fact. Now I'm reminded there is no escape. The more I uncover who my parents were, the more I start to understand who I am. So likewise, the more you start to understand who God is, the more you will understand who you are. So 3 things from Psalm 2 that we learn about God. The first one is this: he is rejected. He is rejected. It says, why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. So because there's duality in meaning in this psalm, it's not just literally talking about ancient empires and ancient kingdoms that were like not on board with the messianic movement of Jesus, that wanted their own kingdom and their own land and their own empire and their own people. It is talking about that, but it's also talking about you and me. You're like, well, what are you talking about, Cameron? Like, I don't have a kingdom. I don't have an empire. And if you do, you should be giving. Like, I don't like openly reject Jesus, but you do, and I do. And let me illustrate that because it happens more than we would like to believe. For instance, I do things that my wife would not prefer. So if you've been coming to Adventure for any amount of time, you know that we have a lot of plants in our home. We have a lot of plants in our home, so many that they're not outside of our home. They're just everywhere. They're on our home, they're under our home, they're around our home. There's plants everywhere. My wife she just like brings the plants. So much so, a couple weeks ago, I tried to take a shower, plant in the shower. Cameron can't take a shower. That's what the shower's for. I guess the shower's now for plants. So I will shower somewhere else. There's just plants everywhere. And so when my wife goes away, sometimes I do things she would not prefer, right? So she gets home. She says, babe, did you water the plants? And I'm like, there are thousands of plants in this home. If I started watering the plants the moment you left, I would still be watering them now. But I don't say that. I just say, I forgot. And the plants begin to die. Does she prefer it? No. But I do things all the time that my wife doesn't prefer. This is Tim Keller, the late, great Tim Keller, would actually say that you and I not only do things that God wouldn't prefer, we actually do things that God hates. I love my wife, so I try not to do things that she hates. Right? Never once has she come back from being out of town and said, babe, did you water the plants? And I say, I did one better. I gathered all the plants in the backyard and then I set them on fire. I've never done that, never said that. Why? Because I do not hate my wife. Do I do things that she doesn't prefer? All the time. But I try, because I love her, to not do things that she hates. You know, you and I actually do things that God hates all the time. When was the last time you gossiped about somebody? When was the last time you reacted and responded in anger? When was the last time that you said something cutting to somebody? When was the last time you weren't proud of what you demonstrated to your kids? When was the last time you thought or talked poorly about somebody? You see, we do stuff that God hates all the time. And so when it talks about kingdoms and empires that are rising up and banding against Jesus, he's not just talking about ancient empires, he's talking about you and me. Because almost every day we reject God. And so this is the very first thing that we learn from this psalm is that they rejected Jesus and we rejected Jesus. And not only do we reject him, but so often we do things that he hates. That's why in Colossians chapter 1, verse 21, it says this: once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. We don't like to think about ourselves like this. Like, yeah, I know that God's probably not like on board with everything that I do, but like, would you ever really describe God as like, I am an enemy of God? And yet that's what Scripture lays out that we are. Because time after time, I do things that God doesn't just not like, but that he hates. And I claim to love him. If I did stuff that my wife hated all the time intentionally and yet said that I loved her, like something would be off. And look what it says. It says, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. What does that mean? It means that they do not want to submit to God's plan for their life. And if we're honest, we don't really always want to submit to God's plan for our life. We don't want to submit to a lot of things. Because there's this false dichotomy in life that the things that look like lead to freedom actually lead to slavery. Right? Because there's actually things that you have to submit your life to lead you into freedom. Right? Budgeting. Sorry to say a bad word in church, but if you don't live with a budget, you're going to end up in, yeah, see, you guys don't even want to talk about it. You're going to end up in debt. Debt, also known as slavery, right? It's not fun to make a budget. The budget just tells me how much money I don't have. And yet, if you just spend and never work with a budget, you're gonna end up in debt, right? So the thing that looks like freedom only leads to slavery, right? It's not always fun to work out. Who wants to wake up when it's 95 degrees at 9 a.m. in California and go for a run? You're like, I don't wanna die. But if you live your entire life never exercising, what does that lead? It leads to a lot of health problems, leads to inactivity, right? And it leads to a life of slavery. because physically you can't do things. Or maybe you're suffering from bad health, right? Or cleaning. I heard people clean their house. If you don't clean your house, bad things happen. I know from firsthand experience because I always try to not clean my house. It's not fun to clean. But the point is that the things in your life that you think look like freedom actually end up in slavery. But people look at God and we go, well, why? Christianity, religion, God, like it's old-fashioned. If you don't want to have any fun, follow God. If you just want like a bunch of rules, have you heard this? Have you felt this? If you want just a bunch of rules and you don't want to have any fun, follow God and read the Bible. And I want to tell you this morning, there is not a single command in this book that is meant to rob you of joy. This book is meant to lead you into the fullness of life that God has created for you. But sometimes the things that look like discipline lead to freedom. That's what God wants for your life. He wants more freedom. So what does that mean? It means that I'm going to have to submit to His will and plan for my life. And it's not what they were willing to do, and it's not always what I'm willing to do. George MacDonald, a Scottish writer, actually wrote this. He said, the one principle of hell, if you took everybody in hell and you refined it to one common belief, the one principle of hell is, I am my own. I'm not anybody else's. I don't have to report back into anybody else. I don't have to submit to anybody else. I am my own. It's a concept that Tim Keller would say not only leads to hell, but actually creates hell in your life. If you want to create hell in your marriage, buy into the belief that I am my own. If you want to create hell in your family, buy into the belief that I am my own. If you want to create hell in your finances, buy into the belief that I am my own. A belief that not only leads to hell, but actually creates hell. And this is why it's so difficult, and this is why time after time we actually reject God. Because so much of who and how He is runs counter to who and how I am. For instance, just to name a few, in Matthew chapter 20, He says, the first will be last. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, it says that you will have strength in weakness. In Luke chapter 6, He says to love your enemies. In Luke chapter 9, He says you got to lose your life to find it. And in all of the Gospels, we don't see a conquering king. We see a crucified king. Who and how Jesus is, right? It's what we call the upside down kingdom of God, because it runs counter to so much of who I am. But the kingdom of God is not upside down because He's upside down. It's upside down because I'm upside down. Because I've got my priorities in the wrong order. Because I'm worshiping the wrong things. Really practical thing to help you this week, not buy into the belief that I am my own. I started thinking about like this. I'm not my son's, he's not my son. I am my son's father. I am my daughter's father. I am my wife's husband. I am my mom's son. I belong to them. They don't belong to me. Do you see the difference? You can live your entire life believing that everybody in your sphere exists for you. Or you can live a life like Jesus lived, right? Because He did not come to be served, but to serve. You can say, I'm not His dad. I'm His father. He's not my son, I'm His father. I exist for Him. I exist for you. I am not my own. And this is the life that Jesus woos us to live. I had a friend a couple of months ago. She went to Africa. She enters in one of the villages, and in these villages they got a bunch of huts, and in the middle of this hut is a pedestal like this. It almost looked like a shrine, and in the middle of the shrine there was a wooden little statue. And then everything else in the hut was facing this table. So everywhere you go, like if you sat down in a chair, it was facing the center. And so she asks the guy she's with, she's like, what's up with this? Why is everything facing in the middle? He said, well, here, everything in our home is pointed at and faces that which we worship. And he said, what is that for you? And I was really convicted about this guy. I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, what is everything in my home facing? I'm like, probably the 75-inch TV on the screen, right? And you're like, babe, the sight lines are ruined. When I'm cooking, I can't see the TV. We knock out this wall, right? Or maybe we put a TV in the bathroom. So I got handle business. I can keep watching it, right? Like everything is facing the TV. You're like, well, that's embarrassing on Western culture. The more I thought about it, though, the more I realized that's not actually the TV. The thing in my life, and what I want to posit this morning for you, the thing in your life, that everything in your life is facing, that everything in your life is built around and built for, is not your TV, it's you. It's me. Everything in my life, even my relationships, even the people that I love the most, are positioned in a way that face me. Because I realize that more often than not, I am the God in my life. I am the object of worship in my life. That's like bonus points if it benefits somebody else, but like I would kind of like everything to like benefit me the most. And I realize that I am sitting at the center of my own life. And it's a problem. Because Romans chapter 12, verse 1 says this. Can we throw that up, Jonathan? It says, Paul writes, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a what? As a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Jonathan, leave that up for a second. Did you know that Paul is writing and saying that what we just did in worship, the songs that you sang, that you know by heart, you raised your hand, you know what Paul's saying? That's not really worship if you're not living it on a Monday. That it doesn't matter the words that you come into this house and sing if it's not part of your life on a Tuesday. Paul says, what is your true and proper worship? It's that you're the sacrifice. And the longer I've walked with God, I realize that you can't be the sacrifice if you're also the idol. And I realized so many years of my life, I have been the idol of my worship. When I'm not called to be an idol, I'm called to be a sacrifice. Because what was Jesus for me? A sacrifice. And so I reject Jesus and I miss Jesus because I'm not the sacrifice, I'm the idol time after time. So the first thing that we learn about God is that he is rejected, not just then, but now, not just by them, but by me. The second thing that we learn about God is that he is on the throne. We love having something or somebody on the throne. We really do. We get really uncomfortable when we feel like nobody is at the helm. So I went with some buddies this weekend. We did a Father's Day camping trip. We've all got sons around the same age, 6, 7, 8 years old. And so we went camping in Tahoe. You know what these kids, they haven't seen each other in months. You know what these kids did the very first 30 seconds they were together? They huddle up. We're unpacking. All the dads are setting up the tents. They huddle up and they ask this very important question. They said, all right, now who's in charge of the kids? And they start to develop a hierarchy. And they're like, all right, you're in charge. All right, I'm in charge. And over the course of the weekend, when somebody would win sword fighting, they would get demoted. Or if you fell while we were hiking, kicked out. I was like, these kids are ruthless. It's gonna be Lord of the Flies here pretty soon. Like somebody's gonna get sacrificed on a rock. Like we just can't help it. We want somebody on the throne. We want somebody holding the wheel. Like we get uncomfortable when it's not. And look what it says in verse 4. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. What does it say God does up on his throne? The kingdoms and the nations are rising against God. And what is God's response? He laughs. Did you ever fight somebody when you were a kid? You probably didn't because you're in church. But hypothetically, you know, if a pastor, when he was younger, fought somebody, hypothetically, and you punch somebody like as hard as you can, and they laugh at you, like you know it's about to end really poorly for you. And we get this picture that the whole earth is rising up and it's rejecting God. And we get this scene of God in heaven. And what is he doing? He's laughing. And he's not laughing at the suffering of humanity. He's laughing at the pride and the arrogance of humanity. And it begs this question, how many times have I lost sleep over something God laughs about? And maybe for some of you, you know, the world got a little bit crazier yesterday, or at least it feels like it did. Maybe you put your hope in a leader. Maybe you put your hope in a president, in a regime, in a document, in a worldview, in a way of life. Or maybe you put your hope in you. But what does Psalm 2 say? It says that I have installed my king. Don't install a king on the throne out of fear or false desire. He says, I have installed my king. So what is he saying? He's saying that cancer is not my king. Divorce is not my king. My career is not my king. He says, I have installed my king on my holy mountain. And look what it says, Psalms chapter 2, verse 9. You will break them with a rod of iron. What is he going to do when he's on the throne? You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise, be warned, you rulers of the earth. Psalm chapter 2, we start to see a different side of God. If you've grown up in church, you probably have a very precious moments view of church. You remember precious moments, like ornaments and stuff. Everybody's very happy, cuddly, right? Jesus looks he just wants to love and hug you. Precious moments, Jesus. I just want you to feel better about yourself. And then what does it say in verse 9? He's coming with a rod of iron. He's gonna smash you like pottery. You're like, I'll take precious moments, Jesus, please. You start to see a different side of God that maybe you didn't see before. Right, and this happened this weekend, so I'm with my son, and your kids, they get the most tender, cultivating side of you because you want them to be nurtured and you want them to feel supported, encouraged, and loved. And so my son gets the most nurturing side of me. And so we're with the group, and I'm like, Bubba, do you need to go potty? And he's like, yeah, I got to go potty. So we got to walk down to the bathroom. It's like on the other side of the camp. And so I'm like, okay, all right, come here, Bub. I'll take you. And I look up at my buddy who's a full-grown man, and I look him in the eyes. I say, hey, we're going to go potty. And I was like, I just told a full-grown man we're going potty. I said, hey, we're going to the bathroom. We'll be back. Take care of the kids, man the fort. I didn't say that. I said, we're going potty. Never felt less like a man, and I felt like I was 6 years old again because my brain can't switch back and forth that quick, right? And I was in dad mode. I'm like, we're going potty. So I grabbed my son's hand, and we walk kind of around this big grove of trees. We're headed towards the bathroom, and then all of a sudden, I see a little bear cub run by, and my heart stops. And we had seen bears all weekend because, they're just trying to get your food and your trash, but I saw a bear cub run by, and I knew where there's a bear cub that there's a mama bear. And any survival book anywhere will tell you, do not go anywhere near a mama bear and her cubs. Except in that moment, I'm daddy bear, and I've got my cub with me. And so I just freeze, and I grab Carter's hand, and I'm squeezing it, and I get behind me. And then sure enough, 10 seconds later, out of the group of trees, the mama bear comes out. And in that moment, I'm just like, I have to get my son out of this situation. It does not matter what happens to me anymore. I have to save him. And so we had these air horns because you just, scare the bears away. They're just looking for trash and stuff. But a mama bear is a little bit different. And I didn't have my air horn. But what I did have, we're near the bear box. It's just this big metal thing that you put all your food in, and the bears can't open it. It's just a big metal thing. And I had my hammer sitting on top of it from driving in the stakes of our tent. And so I put Carter behind me. I grab the hammer, and I just start screaming at this bear, and I'm wailing on the bear box. And I sound like a banshee. And I go, ah! And the metal's clanging on metal, and the mama bear takes off with the bear cub. I look back down at my son, and his eyes are like dinner plates. And I'm like, my son, I realized, has never seen that side of dad before. And I think most of us remember the moment you realized, oh, dad is a little bit dangerous. Like, my kid always gets the nurturing, loving, I got to reprimand him and I got to be hard on him sometimes, but he gets the most nurturing and loving side. But this dad is always prepared to go to war for his kids, but he doesn't always see that side. He sees a different side of dad. And in Psalm chapter 2, you see a different side of God that you hadn't seen before. You see an angry God. You see a God who's coming back with a rod. And we go, well, man, why is God angry? We always associate anger with sin, and that's because you and I don't handle anger very well. But if you love something enough, I hope that it makes you angry when something tries to hurt it. God looked down at you and me in our brokenness. He got angry. But you and me, we're moved to sin typically. We don't handle anger well. When we get angry, we're moved to sin. You know what God was moved to? He was so angry, he was moved to love. And he was so angry about sin and death in your life, he went to the cross. But don't shy away from this God. You want an angry God. Because you'll walk through seasons and feel like, man, darkness is winning in my life. Brokenness is winning in my life. And you want God to come in angry with a rod that says he's going to smash it like pottery. The things that have been breaking you, he's going to come back and break. The things that you feel like have been destroying you, he's coming back to destroy. You want an angry God because he loves you. And so we see a different side of God. He shows up and he's angry. He's not mad at you, he's mad about you. And he shows up with a rod and he's ready to go to war for his kids. Every now and then you get a glimpse that dad's just a little bit dangerous. He is on the throne. And I want to tell you this morning, there's no term limits in heaven. There's no recall that's going to take him down from that throne. He's not scared. He's not worried. He is anointed and appointed and enthroned yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He has been on the throne and he always will be on the throne. He's not going anywhere. And so what is he leading us towards as he reigns on the throne? Revelation 21:4 says he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. Read this. For the old order of things has passed away. The old order of things has passed away. What does this mean? It means that you will not pass away. Cancer will. You will not pass away. Affairs will. You will not pass away. Homelessness will. You will not pass away. Divorce will. You will not pass away. Death will. That he's coming back to kill death. The thing that has been destroying you, he's coming back to destroy. And in Psalm 2, we see a different version of God. We see an angry God who's angry for his kids, who's angry about his kids, and who's coming back to make things right. He is on the throne. The third thing that we learn about God, he is our refuge. Verse 11, serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son or he will be angry and your way will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. Isn't this amazing? So the psalm starts out talking about how God is rejected. We all reject God. But the psalm ends by him saying, come here, come home. We don't handle rejection well. Can we agree on that? In fact, the motto I have lived my life by for so many years is that I will leave you before you leave me. I dare you to try to hurt me. I will be gone before you even try. Fool me once. But that's not God. He says, I love you before you loved me. I'll love you after you left me. And I will love you when you return to me. Come home. This is the message of the gospel. This is God's message to humanity since the beginning of time. No matter where you've been, come home. No matter what you've done, come home. No matter who you are, come home. God just wants you to come home. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter how dirty or messy your life is. He just wants you to come home. Why? Because he wants to love you. Because he does love you. Because he will always love you. What's he saying? You've been in opposition. You've been rejecting him. You've been running away. Come home. But he will let you do your thing for a little while. You want to run away? You want to reject him? You want to live life the way that you want to live? He will let you. I remember that my first apartment, I thought, I'm never cleaning the bathroom. I grew up cleaning the bathroom. Why would I willingly clean the bathroom? 2 months in, the toilet was a hazmat whole situation. And I called my mom and I said, you were right. I need my mom. And I said, how do I do this? God will let you do your own thing. and he will wait for you with open arms when you return. That is his message to you now. That is his message to you always. Come home. He just wants you to come home. He is on the throne, and he is your refuge. He's not waiting for you to clean your life up. He's not waiting for you to figure it out. He's just waiting for you to come home. Verse 11, serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. You go, Cameron, I thought you said not to worship things out of fear. But the fear of the Lord is different than the fear that you and I usually think about. In fact, it says in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. If you walked in the room this morning feeling like if God knew that you were here, he'd be upset or disappointed or wouldn't want you to be here, or if you walked in this morning carrying the weight of shame in your life, like I'm not enough, I know I'm not enough, nothing I ever do will be enough, then you do not understand the love of God, because shame is not a tactic or tool that Jesus uses. He just wants you to come home, and there is no fear in love. He just wants you to come home. Don't carry something you were not designed to carry. He knew that you were not enough. That's why he came. He knew I wasn't enough. That's why he came. There is no fear in love. And for anybody who's walking through a dark season in life right now, I want you to hear me. You are not being punished. You may have been diagnosed, but you have not been deserted. You may have been rejected, but you have not been left behind. He is with you. And look what it says at the very end of the psalm. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. A refuge in ancient times was a fortification or a walled city. When the normal defenses failed, the people would retreat into the refuge, which typically would be unassailable, unimpregnable. Like you go to the refuge and nothing could get in. So when the normal defenses fail, you retreat into the refuge. That's the picture that God gives us of who and how he is, that he is our refuge. I've shared about it before, but 2024 was the hardest year of my life. I grew up without a dad, lived out of my car for a couple weeks, growing up. Was all over the place, and yet last year, with a beautiful family, a church that I love, last year was the hardest year of my life. I cried more last year than I probably ever have before in my life. I had my first panic attack last year. I don't struggle with anxiety or depression, and I'm driving in the car. I called Charmaine, and I'm crying on the phone. Like, I think I'm having a panic attack. I got to pull the car over. As every defense in my life fell, my financial defenses, my emotional defenses, my physical and mental defenses, my relational defenses. It was like an all-out assault. And all of those defenses fell. And I spent so many nights out of my office just crying out to God, please show up. I need you to show up. And honestly, there are many weekends I thought, how on earth can I walk out on this stage and speak about the goodness of God when God doesn't feel very good right now? And slowly but surely the defenses fell, and I was in a very uncomfortable spot where you just have nothing left. You have no answers. You have no problem solving. You have no resources. And can I tell you, nothing changed, but I did. Because I started to understand that more than just what God can give me or what he can bless me with or what he can show up and fix, that he is my refuge. Not the gifts, nothing that he can save me from, but like he himself, the person of Jesus, is the refuge in my life. And when you get to the point where you have nothing left, you arrive at that realization that I may not have anything left, but that's okay because he is enough. And if I have him, I've got everything that I need. But you're never going to discover that if you do not walk through some brokenness first. You have not been abandoned. You have not been forgotten. God is positioning you to see him for who he really is, a good, good Father. You want to know when God demonstrates how good he is? When life feels anything but good. I don't need God to be good when life is good. I need God to be good when life is not. And the good news is that God is always good. Whether I'm good or not, whether my life is good or not. He is our refuge. When our kids at night get scared, they 3 a.m, they just blood-curdling scream. You don't know if somebody's being murdered or somebody just has to go to the bathroom. So you jump out of bed, your adrenaline's rushing. You're not gonna go to bed for 2.5 hours after that adrenaline dump. Run into the room and, Dad, monsters, there's monsters. And so early on I thought, I need to show my son, my kids, that there's no monsters in the room. And if there are, I'm gonna get them. So I'd open the closet and I'm like kicking the monsters and I'm doing all this stuff. And like none of that mattered. He's like, Dad, come into bed. And so I crawl into bed and he's like whimpering in bed. And my son went through this season of life where he would just say the same thing over and over again. He said, Dad, I just want you. I just want you. Me being there didn't make the room any less dark. Me being there didn't make the monsters any less real. It was my presence and my presence alone that changed everything for them. God being in your life does not always mean that your circumstances are going to be great. Nothing's ever going to go wrong. But his presence is enough. And if you feel like you've been just barely hanging on, he's getting you to exactly where you need to be, where you realize everything else is falling apart. I've got no answers. I'm not enough, but he is. And as long as I have him, I will make it through. Because I'm not enough, but he is enough. You've not been abandoned. You've not been deserted. You've not been forgotten. He is with you, and he is enough because he is our refuge. He is on the throne, friends. Nothing that happens in the world yesterday, today, or tomorrow is going to change that. Nothing that happens in your family, in your career, in your integrity, nothing is going to change that. He is on the throne. And he alone is our refuge. When every other defense has fallen, he never will. So I walked through 2024, and can I be honest with you? None of those circumstances have changed. But I did. And you start to realize that you will change, but your God never will. And he's saying the same thing that he said to those ancient kings and kingdoms, then come home. Wherever you're at in life, come home. Whatever you've done in life, come home. Whatever you believe about yourself, come home. Whatever they said about you, come home. Whatever you've done that you're ashamed of, come home. Regardless of how you feel like you're failing as a parent, come home. Regardless of how successful or not you feel in life right now, come home. And we remember and realize that he is on the throne and he alone is our refuge. Can I pray for you this morning? God, thank you for loving us. Thank you for always chasing us down. Lord, thank you that no matter how many times we reject you, no matter how many times we run from you, you are always waiting, arms wide open, inviting us to come home. And God, this morning I pray that we would come home. For anybody in the room that feels like they have veered away from what they know to be true, that they've drifted into a lifestyle that they know is not for them, God, I pray that they would come home. God, that we would recenter, refocus on you. Come home. And God, for anybody in this room who has not said yes to you this morning, for the single mom who feels like she's not enough, for anyone that just received the diagnosis that feels like it's going to change everything, for anyone dealing with the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, significance, relationship, God, I pray that we would come home to you, our only refuge. I want to give you an opportunity this morning to say yes to Jesus. If you've never made that decision, if you've been trying to do this on your own, I want to invite you to make this decision this morning. I don't want you to think about the people around you. I don't want you to buy into the belief that you got to get right before you can get with God. He's not waiting for you to clean your life up. He's not waiting for you to know enough, be enough, do enough. He is enough. He knows that you're not. He just wants you to come home. So if you are ready to stop trying to do this on your own, if you are ready to say yes to something bigger than yourself, yes to something more than yourself, yes to your only refuge that will never fail or fall. In just a second, I'm going to count to 3. Wherever you're at, I just want to invite you to raise your hand if you are ready to say yes to Jesus this morning. 1, 2, 3. If you're ready to say yes to Jesus, wherever you're at, just raise your hand. Yep. Back here. Yep. Come on, Bayside Adventure. Come on. Yep. You two right back there. Yep, all the way in the back. I see you. Come on. Hey, would you pray this prayer with me? Don't have to get the words exactly right. This is a moment between you and God. Pray this prayer with me. Dear Jesus, I'm a sinner. I cannot do this on my own. Today I receive your love. I receive your forgiveness. Jesus, come into my life and lead my life for all the days of my life. God, we give all of this to you in your beautiful name we pray. Everybody said, amen. Come on, make some noise for every hand that was raised this morning.